Very good to be with you all. Very excited for folks who are joining us as a participant, as also as a fellow presenter. Before I do introductions of speakers, I do want to talk briefly about who we are as a firm. So our name is Dean Dorton. We are a full-service CPA and business consulting firm with offices in Kentucky and North Carolina. Our market expands coast to coast of the U.S. as well as internationally, but we're primarily thought of as a Southeast regional firm. I mean, our services include what you would expect from an accounting firm, but also want to emphasize that we have a high level of outsourcing services that we provide, from outsourced accounting, outsourced technology, outsourced cybersecurity, just overall outsourced IT and software work. So that makes us somewhat different from other accounting firms. Here's a picture of our panel of speakers today. I'm there on the left, followed by Katie Rupert, who is a manager within the accounting financial services group. Katie focuses on nonprofits, so you all are her people, and she is here to serve and answer any questions that you may have. Krista Nash is also a manager in the accounting and financial services team, and she is located physically in the Raleigh, North Carolina market. So you will hear more from them as we proceed. Our agenda is in front of you. We're just going to talk about where we are, where the nonprofit industry is, some ideas for embracing new technology, what people are saying about this process. We'll have time at the end for any Q&A. All right, so Katie Rupert is going to take the slides next, and she's going to just give an overview of where she sees the nonprofit industry. So Katie, here you go.
Thanks, Justin. Hi, everyone. So as Justin mentioned, nonprofit is really my exclusive focus here at Dean Dorton. And over my whole career, I've pretty much always worked in and with nonprofit organizations. So I really just love taking things out of the way so that people that can really do the good work in our communities have the free time to be able to actually do it and the information they need to do it. So let's dig into this slide. The first thing I want to mention is that you may have noticed that it's becoming harder and harder to attract and retain really good board leaders. So your board leaders are really, they need to use their time wisely. So you need to be able to provide them with information that's very specific to their needs so that they're able to make the decisions and answer the questions they need to in order to effectively lead your organization. The same is true for your program managers. So your program managers are really stretched thin, and they need the right information at the right time to be able to make the right decisions and lead your programs in a mission-focused direction. And lastly, donors are being tapped more than ever before. So being able to come to them with effective information at that ask will help you sustain those donors over the long run. So it's really important to be able to speak to all of your audiences, all of your variety of audiences on demand, meet them where they are, and then get the clutter out of the way so that you can really provide them with the information they need specifically. So COVID is hopefully starting to appear in our rear view mirror rather than our front mirror or our windshield. When we were going through this pandemic, most of our nonprofit organizations we were really doing whatever we needed to do to get the job done. But now that it's starting to subside, we really have to refocus on good internal control practices and good data security. But the needle's moved, so we really don't want to lose all of those great things that we've come to know so well, web-based meetings, electronic data exchange. We just need, as we look at digital transformation, to identify ways to keep the things that we really like, keep the best, and fix the rest. So that's what we're looking to do in the aftermath of COVID. COVID also brought to light a lot of needs in our community that may have been there before, but they really have a spotlight on them now. And as the trend continues for government funds to really be over-purposed, to be diverted and overextended, more and more, the nonprofits are the organizations that are stepping up to fill those needs in our community. The nonprofits provide the safety net for many individuals. They provide resources for families. And in a lot of ways, nonprofits are starting to become collaborative opportunities for businesses to really make the changes they need to make in a new and dynamic world. So nonprofits not only have to do more with less, but there are also more nonprofits. You may have noticed that in the aftermath of COVID and especially over this last year, we've really seen a pop-up of a lot of nonprofits that are being formed to address specific needs within communities. So it's really important that you're able to really distinguish your nonprofit, that each individual nonprofit has a voice. So again, as we look to digital transformation, we need to find ways to make sure that your nonprofit is defined and visible in your community. And that's going to allow you to really effectively honor your mission. And lastly, livable wage is not going down. We've always struggled as nonprofits to be able to stretch those dollars. But we know in most nonprofit organizations, you're really people-based. People are what make it possible for you to really meet the needs of your mission. So in order to do that effectively, one of the things that we know is that you're going to have a leg up if you can effectively measure your return on investment, not really in dollars, although dollars are important, but really looking at each of the positions in your organizational chart and being able to speak to how that position advances your mission, how it makes it possible for you to do what you need to do. And then having a similar technique of measuring return on investment for all of your major investments, technology being one of them, but also just the entire process management and the pieces that go into that process. So let's flip to the next slide, Justin. And to effectively address these challenges that we just talked about, we think it's really important for nonprofits to really have a paradigm shift in your accounting function. So really just thinking about a different way of doing business when it comes to your accounting function. In a static accounting function, it's one that really relies on manual processes. So you may have only one or a couple of individuals within your organization that complete your accounting or your bookkeeping tasks. Whereas in a dynamic environment, you try to automate as much as possible so that you don't need a special set of keys to be able to accomplish these tools or to be able to accomplish the outcomes you need to accomplish. A good example of automation is bill pay. There's a lot of opportunities for automation in bill pay, but some of the things we don't necessarily think about are things like donor management and event planning or fundraising management. In a static environment, your technology tends to be localized. So you have your physical technology is really in that one location. And again, you've only got one or two people who need to be physically located in that place to be able to get that work done. Whereas in a cloud-based system, you're able to really decentralize the work. It enables your team to really engage as needed without that unnecessary disruption to the other work that they have to get done. Cloud-based systems are also generally more secure, and they really tend to include the redundancy and the backup that it is difficult to really mimic in a local environment. So cloud-based systems are definitely a indicator of a more dynamic accounting function. In a dynamic accounting function, you can also plug in your subject matter experts as needed, So these might be a permanent plug like a payroll provider, or it could be a project-based initiative like a fundraising team, a fundraising system that you would plug in as needed. So we touched base earlier on the importance of reporting that really meets the needs of your users where they're at in a very on-demand sort of format. And in a dynamic accounting function, you really have that ability to provide real-time data and dynamic reports, because they tend to be systems that allow you to slice and dice your data in a much more easy format. Whereas a static accounting function comes with your canned reports that are good. They definitely meet your compliance needs, but they don't necessarily focus in on the needs of your users when they need the information they need. Automated and cloud-based systems really lend themselves to that electronic workflow opportunity. And the advantage of the electronic workflow is that it really does minimize your opportunity for error. And it also standardizes the sign-offs and the security that auditors just really love to see. And so that gives you a little bit of a leg up on being able to meet the needs of your audit if you are an audited firm. And it gives you that added security even if you're not, that the processes you've put in place are being followed. And lastly, on this list, a digital office is one in which your supporting documentation and your audit trail are really right there alongside your transaction. So when you have a question about the balance in postage, you're able to, within that same system, see who authorized the transaction, what it was for, when it was paid, who it was paid to. And in order to get that done, you don't have to dig through your desk and find that tiny little correct filing cabinet key that will open the filing cabinet. And you don't have to know if the UPS store is filed under T for the, U for UPS, or P for postage. You don't have to guess if it's in the fiscal year file or the calendar year file. It's just right there, right alongside your transaction. And there are so many advantages and such a time saver to be able to do that. And that's really a good motivation for moving along on your digital transformation journey. So let's click to the next slide. And one of the things that we really want to do is to see where you're at in your digital transformation journey. This is, just a quick little assessment. We've got 18 questions. So I'd like you to grab a piece of scratch paper. It doesn't have to be big. We just need you to be able to put some columns on your paper, yellow, green, purple, and we're going to add hashtags as we go. So the first couple of slides, we're going to keep in mind your accounting or your bookkeeping team. So I want you to think about that individual, or maybe it's you, maybe you have a small team of people or a large team of people that are really responsible for paying bills, recording deposits, making sure that you have financial statements at the end of each month, and really meeting all of your needs in an accounting function. So first, I'd just like you to make a hash mark under the column that is best associated with the size of your team. So if it's if 3 or less, you would put a hashtag under yellow, and so on. Then we want to look at the accounting skills of that team. So by this, I mean, do they understand revenue recognition and the period in which a transaction should be recognized? Do they understand accrual accounting or cost allocation, if cost allocation is something that you need to do in your organization? Do they understand what's needed to document a donation so that it's acceptable under an audit if you were to be challenged on that? And do they really understand what needs to be done to preserve your tax exempt status from an accounting perspective? So just give that a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds of thought and put a hash mark under low, medium, or high as it relates to their capacity to be able to do that. Then technology is pretty self-explanatory. So I want you to just think about the technology skills, the mastery of technology that your accounting team has, and then their awareness of emerging technology. And then I want you to think about their awareness of not only current accounting practices or things that might be changing, but also best practices in just general business. So by this, I mean banking practices, insurance and risk management, human resources, being aware of changes in the law as it relates to payroll, things like that. And then the last item on this slide is internal controls. So even if you have a really small team, and maybe if it's just you, how comfortable are you with, is that team with really mitigating risk? Do you feel like they really understand the best ways to mitigate risk given the size of the organization? So let's flip to the next slide then. And we're going to continue to think about your accounting or your bookkeeping team. And the first item there is pretty straightforward. Do you meet the deadlines? So these would be board deadlines or the needs of your program managers. If you need to submit grant invoices, are those things happening on time? And then the second point is, are they happening with precision? And by that, I'm looking back to what we talked about when we first started with the users of your financial data. Are they getting information that's right for them? Are they able to really zero in on the information they need to make the right decisions? And then next, is it accurate, or do you oftentimes have to go back? Do people catch errors and you have to go back and correct it? Is the report really not instilling confidence because it's not complete information? So we want to rank whether your team has a low, medium, or high ability to get that done. Then we're going to shift gears a little and think about how stretched your team is. Does your team have the ability to take leave and really refresh as needed? When an emergency comes up, does everybody just start pulling out their hair and losing their mind? Or do you really have enough capacity within your team to be able to roll with the punches? The second to the last point is whether this team really understands the information they're putting out. If someone asks a question and they just aren't very savvy in the ways of accounting, are the members of your team able to really explain what the data means? And then lastly on this slide, I want to just have an understanding of those team members. Are they being asked to do a lot of other things within your organization? So do they double as receptionists? Do they double as program people who deliver direct service? Maybe they're doing human resources as an adjunct piece to the accounting. So I want to highlight that yellow has swapped here. We're not low, yellow is high. So if that happens a lot in your organization, you want to put a hash mark of yellow. And then if it's low, you'd want to put a hash mark under purple. And then we're going to go to the very last slide of this assessment. And we're going to switch gears and think about your leadership. So this might be just a single executive director or president, that might be you, or it might be a team of people that surround the executive director and president that really make the day-to-day decisions. And so thinking about that group, how comfortable are they with technology, or is that person with technology? Then what's their communication style? You know, are they able to be proactive, or is everything a fire drill for them? They just need information when they need it. The third point is similar in their comfort with resolving immaterial concerns in batches. And an example of that would be, does this individual or team, do they wait for meetings and then they tackle a bunch of things at once? Or do they really have a sense of urgency whenever some sort of issue comes up in their mind, they need a resolution right away? If that's the case, then they probably have a low comfort level with dealing with things in batches. COVID's given us that opportunity to really understand how comfortable we are with remote interaction. So hopefully you have some insight into whether or not the senior leadership team is comfortable with remote interactions. And then financial data can be issued right after a month ends, or you can wait until every piece of information is known. How comfortable is your senior leadership with those types of assumptions? Do they prefer to see January data that first week in February, even though they know there's going to be some assumptions about that last payroll, about the investment returns? Some of your expenses will be estimated. Or are they more comfortable waiting until the very end of February, maybe even the beginning of March, in order for January's data to be 100% accurate and supported? And then lastly, and this is pretty self-explanatory too, what's their ability to follow the agreed upon processes? Senior leadership tends to be visionary, and sometimes visionary individuals have difficulty following the processes, and sometimes they're very comfortable with that. So we'd just like to get a sense of that by having you put a hashtag under the correct column of color. And then go ahead and add up your hashtags. There's 18 possible under each one, but we're really just interested in where you have the most. This obviously was not a scientific poll by any means, but what it does is it gives us, we do tend to see that these indicators give us an impression of where you'll be most successful in your next step. So there's a lot of words on this slide, but I do think you're getting a copy of this, so don't worry about that specifically. But if you had a lot of yellow responses, then you might be in a position where you really want to gauge how you're using your resources right now. You might want to step back and consider plugging in some external assistance. That just might make sense for you to be able to capture all the advantages of digital transformation without right now making that investment expense-wise and time-wise into getting it done well. If the majority of your hash marks were in the green area, then you're probably somewhat on track with digital transformation, but you likely have some barriers in process or people. And by having a non-emotional assessment of where you're at, doing a formal assessment allows you to frame that in a way that you can usually tackle those problems much more easily. And if the majority of your responses were in the mature and mission-driven category, then you're probably right on track with digital transformation, but there's always some soft spots. And the way to address soft spots best are by having a formalized process for identifying and addressing them. That will allow you to be able to retain your advantage and make sure that your processes evolve as your organization grows. So thank you. I'm going to turn you over then to Krista, and she's going to dig into giving us a better idea of how some of these concepts can really become action for your organization.
Thank you, Katie. As we all know, especially with the events of this past year, digital transformation is now imperative. Companies have needed to be prepared to efficiently and effectively harness new technologies, as well as prioritize digital transformation, which has meant adapting to new ways of working. Next slide, Justin. Like decentralizing, which Katie mentioned a moment ago, modern software tools allow you the ability to store and access your data in the cloud. Gone are the days of relying on your copies of source documentation in the filing cabinet or relying on your coworkers down the hall. This is especially beneficial for accounting. Using cloud-based accounting software allows you access to real-time data anytime, anywhere that can give you a current financial snapshot of your organization whenever you need it. With migrating to the cloud, you can use specialized applications that allow you to integrate your software needs, developing a dynamic digital infrastructure that keeps driving value for your organization. You can streamline efficiencies with customized workflows. A cloud-based platform allows you customized design of your tech stack or system to bring flexibility and automation to your organization's operational workflow. And this flexibility in a digital infrastructure also allows you to more easily outsource or co-source if needed, while still having the real-time visibility and control of your financial details. A nonprofit executive director typically has a passion for a charitable cause, but probably doesn't prefer managing accounting. So whether your organization needs to expand accounting services beyond basic bookkeeping or hire a complete accounting department, outsourced and co-sourced accounting offers scalable service options that provide efficiencies and peace of mind with your system and organization. Next slide. We know that better insight allows for better decision making, so you need whatever accounting system you use to be efficient while delivering accurate and timely information. You need real-time data and access to that data anytime from anywhere in order to make timely business decisions. So a bird's eye view like a dashboard provides gives you visibility into relevant measurable metrics and key performance indicators that will allow you to keep your focus on the financial health of your organization. Customized reports with dimensional structure, preferably tailored to your industry, that have drill down capability if you need it to your source documents or comparative data, will be beneficial for clear analysis, forecasting, and budgeting. And next slide. In order to get this level of outcome-focused accounting function, you really need cloud-based accounting tools. The modern true cloud solution has open APIs that provide connectivity, visibility, and efficiency through the modern technology of analytics, robotic process automation, and artificial intelligence. This allows you to do more with less. So all of these tools you see listed here are great options that allow for automated process, which save you time and reduce human error. And at the end of the day, saves your company money. So let's look at some examples. Since we believe good accounting starts with a great system, here at Dean Dorton, we partner with Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct specializes in delivering real-time visibility into the metrics that matter to further your mission. They bring a robust infrastructure while at the same time keep it simple with a very user-friendly interface. It allows you for easy entry of your accounting transactions that will be accessible to you anytime, anywhere, on any computer or device. It allows you to not only get an accurate and current financial snapshot of your business, but also makes it easy to share data and integrate with other solutions to further automate, such as a vendor payment tool. One of the software applications we use here at Dean Dorton is Bill.com. Bill.com allows you to capture, approve, pay, and sync to your accounting software to deliver that real-time snapshot. It automates invoice entry using smart features like automatic data entry and duplicate invoice detection. It allows for customized approval workflows and offers flexible payment processing. So moving on to credit card and employee expense tools. Expensify and Nexonia are two of the most popular software tools we use for managing and automating credit card purchases, as well as employee expenses. These tools allow the same visibility for entries and submissions like Bill.com does, and the same ability to build the custom workflows you need for review, approval, and payments. Next slide. At a minimum, a modern accounting system should automate and streamline your core financial management functions, such as the accounts receivable, accounts payable, and month close like you see here. A cloud-based infrastructure provides the needed collaborative two-way interface for your tools to sync your information. It pulls it together in real time to deliver that value-focused accounting functionality that I've mentioned. All the green lines you see here are the manual processes that are going on within your team or behind the scenes with your software. You can definitely utilize these cloud-based tools and manage all of this yourselves, or you can automate and allow external experts to manage this for you through outsource or co-source accounting. Next slide. Again, the embracing of digital transformation, whether it be through the use of technology tools or coupled with outsourced accounting services, allows you to leverage the power of cloud technology to ensure your mission's success through steering process and organization performance, increasing the number of cloud applications and digital technologies like we just discussed, provide cost efficiencies through automation. It provides access to industry experts. One of the biggest benefits of outsourced accounting, is access to accounting and business technology experts that assure the best practices and accounting standards. Outsourcing allows a business to eliminate the time and expense associated with recruiting, training, and managing additional accounting staff, as well as reducing the risk and cost of turnover. And again, it allows you the flexibility to build services and a platform to meet your specific organizational needs, anything from clerical, controller, or CFO consulting. Next slide. So an example of utilizing this leverage is visualized here. It takes the very busy image you saw a moment ago with the green arrows and manual process to this simplified version of your accounting function. With full access to your data without the busyness, you can have real-time data, quick access to dashboards, and key performance indicators while giving you easy-to-read custom reports that will meet the needs of your organizational roles. Justin?
Thank you, Krista. One thing is, Krista and Katie just went through a lot of information. Hopefully, it helps you to understand some of the benefits of migrating away from a desktop version of your software or maybe the system that you've had in place that you bought and you're so proud of. You don't quite want to make the change. Hopefully, we've made the potential change easier for you. An example I like to give, a lot of people say, no, I'm not, it's just too much of a change. Our accounting system is great. I'm nervous about all these different tools. An example that I like to share with people that 99.9% of Americans have adopted is the smartphone. You have a smartphone full of apps that do a bunch of individual things. It would be wonderful if we had one app on our one phone that did everything. But you have your apps for your various credit cards, your apps for your banks, your app for your budget tracker, your app with your friends, your app with your social media, your apps with your professional social media, and then your app with your social media that you don't want your mom and dad to see. So we're already accustomed to using tools to meet our needs. So why not let various accounting and finance tools out there meet our needs, especially with this new cloud-based technology allows those tools to partner well to help you further your organization. We'll share with you a success story.
The idea that Sage Intacct could reduce our chart of accounts from 56,000 to 100 is probably a dream for me. I'm Sherry Friedman. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for Rim to Read. When I first came to Rim to Read, we were using Epicor. We were behind several versions and it was very clunky. The connectivity was tough, it was very slow, and created a lot of frustrations around the globe. Oftentimes, a 15-minute task would take 3 hours. We had no standardized process, and so as a result, every country would sometimes make it up as they went along. When I arrived, we had 56,000 accounts in our chart of accounts. I met with all of the accounting and finance managers around the globe, and everyone, said, we just can't work with Epicor. It's just so hard. We can't close the books. We were looking at both Sage Intacct and we were looking at NetSuite. With Sage Intacct, I got, yeah, we can do that. Out of the box, out of the box, out of the box. With NetSuite, it was, yes, absolutely, with customization. I had a lot of confidence in Sage when I started out. I think everyone I met had a really good sense of the nonprofit world and the needs of the nonprofit. With Armanino, we agreed that we would actually build some key reports right into our system implementation so that the hardest ones, the ones that are the biggest challenge, came right out of the box for us when we pushed the button to go live, and that really helped us. We've taken at least a week out of the close process. We've given people back a lot of time. In the streamlining of our chart of accounts with the dimensions and our variants, we've been able to really get deeper into the detail. We're able to pull data out around our donor reporting that we could never touch before. I think the reporting is probably the sweet spot for us, in terms of where we think that we were really able to leverage early some of the real benefits from our implementation and the power of what Sage Intacct brought to the table. Our management team is looking at the financials for the first time and thinking, wow, they're not 6 months old, they're like last week. The finance and accounting team has just really risen in their own sense of empowerment. This idea of being the trusted advisor to the business has become, sort of our mantra. It was really exciting.
All right, thank you for listening to that. One of the key takeaways from that presentation, again, that was an organization called Room to Read that transitioned onto Sage Intacct, who, as Krista alluded to, is a partner of ours, providing outsourced accounting services as well as setting clients up for on new accounting systems, and they operate the accounting themselves. As she emphasized there at the end, how strong the reporting functionality has been. So one of the benefits of Sage is that it is a report writing system that does accounting. Most accounting systems are accounting systems that, 10 days away from going live, they realize, oh shoot, I have to do some reporting. So the reporting is largely an afterthought. So that is a shameless plug for Sage, but it's also, I want to make you aware that there are a lot of reporting resources tools out there. If your native system is not getting you the reports that you need, look elsewhere for other tools that specialize in reporting that can link with your system, assuming you're on the cloud. QuickBooks Online, NetSuite, whatever the case may be, look for these other reporting functions that would better meet your need, because there's no reason to be bogged down in 2021 with manually exporting data, manually entering data. It should be something that comes out of the system in a presentable manner and then can be used for management purposes. Also, I wanted to point out the speaker, Sherry, she alluded to a couple of marketplace partners, Armino, I believe, and Bill.com for bill pay. Now, those are just two examples of these partners that, apps, if you will, back to my smartphone example. They do specific things, but they work within the overall accounting environment offered by Sage Intacct or QuickBooks Online, whomever it may be. So with that said, we have about 5 minutes left. Would be thrilled to answer any questions from the group.
Justin, I have two questions that came in. First question is, where does one start with all of this?
Katie, would you like to jump on that one?
Sure. So where do you get started? I think doing some sort of an assessment is your best start. You really need to set aside what we've always done before and really get to the heart of what do we need, what kind of information do we need to really answer the questions we have. So I like to start by talking to the people that use your financial data. And that might be your board members, it might be, your program managers, committee members, some of your major donors, and ask them what type of information do they need to make decisions on a daily basis? What do they wish they had that they didn't have, or what do they really like about what they're getting right now? And then work backwards from there to determine how you want to prioritize the collection of your information so that you can then put it back out there in a way that makes sense for everybody that uses it.
All right, we've got one more question that came through. What is the biggest challenge a nonprofit can overcome?
Should I take it, Justin?
Sure.
I'm not muted again yet, so. It really is getting past the way that you've always done it. And that's one of the hardest things. We all get really comfortable in the things that work. We love our Excel spreadsheets. Once we work so hard to make them do what we want them to do. But guess what? They might not answer anybody else's questions anymore. So I think really that first step is to, to set aside, the biggest barrier is really getting stuck in that rut and setting that aside.
Krista, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it was kind of the same thing. The way you've always done it may have worked before and may still work for you, but it may not be the most effective or streamlined solution.
Yeah, one thing I would add, you have to identify what are you holding on to out of convenience or out of preference, and not necessarily because it adds any value. Some people are averse to change because they look at the price tag of swallowing the whole pie versus a piece of the pie. So why not divide it into projects? Whether it's, okay, I'm going to figure out how to improve the accounts payable function so that I can free up a resource for 2 hours a week. I mean, and that sounds small, but that's still someone's time, 2 hours a week, that they can be doing something else. Maybe they can be working with donors or helping upper level management build a campaign that would further the process. Another way, a question I like to ask people when we're having these discussions, like what is simply, and I get a lot of odd reactions to this, but what part of your job are you too good to do? Like, what are you doing that is just flatly beneath you in your skill level? And, I ask that it boosts them up a little bit. It lets them brag on themselves. They can talk about their past experience and yada, yada, yada. But there's so many things that people are holding on to really for no reason. I think Katie and I were talking about this previously. There are no greater martyrs in the world than finance and accounting people. We love to hold on to things we love the thrill of the relief of telling people how busy we are, rather than tell people, this is the value that I brought. So it's a big paradigm shift that's shifting from I am delivering this value and potentially I'm going home at a decent hour versus, I worked 60 hours last week so that I could cut checks and do my bank recon. So it's an interesting exercise, but I think it starts with having the humility and carving out, making it a priority to, with humility, look at your process, where is it broken, and what's needed.